on that, and then the county also reviews and provides recommendations on the comprehensive plan. So it's just a guideline that gives the community some concept, and it is available on our website for review, along with maps and different information on transportation, land use principles, transportation projects that are envisioned, one of them being the improvement to the Carlisle Pike and South Sporting Hill Road, which we've already talked about this evening. So it kind of gives you some goals to work with over a period of time. And I attended the county open space outreach meeting just to learn more about the concepts there. Part of that was not just farmland preservation, but they also spoke about parks and access to open spaces for the community. After coming back from that, I was curious and re-reviewed the rec department's website. All told, between all of the open spaces that the township has, whether it be developed parks, undeveloped parks, or a trail system, we've tipped the scales at over 300 acres of public access areas for the community to recreate in, some of them being athletic facilities and playgrounds and swimming pools and walking trails, and some of it just being open space at this point in time, undeveloped parkland for future improvements at the time that the commissioners wish to do that. One example is a park off of Smith Drive. Commissioner Silcox has been very active with the Veterans Recognition Committee in developing the most recent, 18-acre park, which is available for the community to use. So just providing that for informational purposes.
Okay. Just to sum up here, when is the public meeting date again? Was the end of this month?
October 30th.
The next Board of Commissioners meeting, where monthly action items will be considered, it will be Wednesday, October 30th
Okay.
at 7:30 p.m.
Okay.
Next week.
So this Brambles mess started back when they rezoned it to this residential hotel thing back in, the 90s? Because, they were having problems then. So maybe none of you were on the board, but my thing is, we have to figure out a way to quickly, update the ordinances, do whatever we need to do to the zoning, so we don't keep, because to me, it's a really lame thing to hear. I hated it, but I voted for it. As a constituent, that's like horrible. That's like when you go to the store, is like, where, do you have any more Cocoa Puffs? And they're like, what, we have
Ma'am, do you
some.
mind coming up to the microphone, please?
If you're referring to the idea of a residential hotel and whether or not one could ever be developed in the township moving forward, the Board of Commissioners have already taken action to publicly advertise a hearing at a future date at their November meeting to eliminate that use from the commercial limited district and the commercial general district. It will need to remain in what's referred to as the office park commercial district, which is out on Technology Parkway, which would be a little less innocuous or perhaps have public opposition to it. The area where this development is occurring wasn't zoned residential hotel. It was actually zoned, as I recall, commercial limited, but that was a use that was permitted in that district. And the commissioners have advertised an ordinance, a draft ordinance, for them to address in a public meeting during a public hearing to eliminate the use from the commercial limited and commercial general district. And by doing so, that's already precluded any future developers submitting plans for that particular use in the commercial limited and commercial general district. So they've proactively addressed that concern as at their soonest possibility after having gone through that process.
She asked when this all started. A little history on that piece. When they built 581, that was a piece like this. They built 581 and they split the piece into two pieces. So this piece over here, the one that we're talking about today, was almost landlocked. And they, forever, it just sat there because of the problem that we're talking about, the access problem. Nothing was ever done. How many people believe in coincidence? Yeah, not many. Okay. here, after all these years, from 581 till now, nothing. We get a phone call. Somebody's gonna buy parking and tear it down. Another phone call, here comes a plan on that piece of property at the same time. And you know, I can't tell you what my speculation is, 'cause that's all it is, but you get two things happening at approximately the same time, right next to each other, and you start to think, well, maybe there's something else, which I'll be glad to speculate on when I'm not, in a public meeting. But in any event, just to be aware that the two things happened coincidentally, that we got a plan in for a piece of property that was a problem piece of property, coincidentally with somebody buying the property next door to make a new project out of it, for what it's worth. Okay?
So, thank you for this opportunity to speak. And I do want to preface and say thank you for finally letting us take our dogs to the park. I been a dog owner for a while and been very frustrated that I can't take my dogs to the park. I believe, Mr. Beanstalk, that when you first tried to get on the board, that was one of the things that you were going to do, and then you've been striking it down for the last 20 years. But now that we've had a couple of people run, you're now suddenly more amenable to it, which I wonder if it would have happened if it had not been for Dave and Ryan running.
You can credit my wife for helping to sway my thoughts on the process.
Okay.
Originally, when I first became a commissioner in 2010,
Mm-hmm.
and before that there was some talk about a dog park,
Mm-hmm.
and there was some consternation about whether to do a dog park.
Right.
But until several years ago, when we adopted a dog,
Mhm.
my wife, at several sporting events was seeing that other townships were having dogs in parks,
Mhm.
and allowing dogs in parks, and so certainly that was a different conversation piece at that point. But up until that point, there wasn't much talk about dogs in the parks as so much a dog park.
I
So-
think just
so we
about
had a
every
conversation.
resident in Hampden Township that's had a dog has wanted to have their dogs here.
I appreciate that, and so as we've had this conversation going over the last, last year, we put in place for the first time,
Right.
dogs at Connequintic Park, at the Veterans Park.
Right.
And our game plan was Saruji, and now that that's complete, Saruji, and then just recently, like I said at the last meeting, to put it in at the Sporting Hill Fire Station as well as Preview Park, so,
And also the ball fields.
not ball fields here yet.
Soccer
I'm sorry, the soccer
field.
fields here at the Sporting Hill
Soccer
Station, right
field.
across from.
So are you allowed to have dogs there now?
At the Sporting Hill Fire Station,
Yeah.
there's two soccer fields, so on the sidelines there, you're allowed to have it, but not at the Hampden Park here yet. So the process here, we've been behind a couple other townships in terms of access for dogs at parks, and we're going to see how this goes in terms of this next year, and I'm certainly willing to revisit it. And I'm certainly open to conversation on a dog park, by the way, so that's going to be a conversation we have as we talk about the future development of other parks.
Yeah, just,
But I'm sorry, sir,
yeah, just in accordance with what you're saying, one of the things that we're gonna see in this budget, which we sort of get a hint about, is the land off Smith Drive. We have some land that we own already back on Smith Drive. That will be in the budget for an analysis of what we can do with that land back there. That is a good target. We talked about Saruji, but Saruji's not, we're gonna put a walking trail. That solves part of the problem with the muddiness, because there'll be a walking trail around the park. And so if you wanna walk your dog down in Saruji, stay on the walking trail, let the dog walk beside it or whatever, even in the spring when it gets, hopefully the trees will take care of it, soaking up that water that sits there in the spring, if anybody knows that piece of ground. We've talked about, and I'm a dog lover. I had dogs since I was this high. And so I've always been a supporter of putting dogs in the parks. And one of the arguments, I said put them in all the parks, I don't really care. One of the arguments is, well, kids play in the parks and they put things in their mouth and everybody doesn't clean up after their dogs. And so they've avoided putting them in the playgrounds of the park. You follow what I'm saying? Where the little kids play and, all this. Anyway, but that's, well, there's rabbits in the park, there's deer in the park, there's other things in the park. And so why not, the groundhogs, so why not dogs? but that's been the thing, so what the board is doing is incrementalization. They started with this park, and they started this park, and this park, and it's sort of a test to see if the people of Hampden Township are gonna clean up after their animals, which is, I think, a fair test. So eventually, I think if everybody does their job and they clean up after their animal, and we have a good success ratio, we'll keep adding parks till we have them. If that makes any sense to you.
Well, I mean, I still think it was many years too late, but I'm glad it's happening now.
Thank you.
I do want to go back to the limericks, though. I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing about it, but honestly, I want to make a couple of points about this. First and foremost, Mr. Beanstock, you are a public servant. You work for and represent all of us, including the people that you have made fun of. And I know you continue to insist that you didn't make fun of anybody. But I'm pretty sure that if somebody read one of the ones that includes the N-word to your grandchildren, you would not find that appropriate. I don't think that they would find it appropriate. I think that they would be upset to hear that word come out of somebody's mouth, especially a white person. So I don't think that it was appropriate. I really don't. And the fact of the matter is that if there was a teacher at Cumberland Valley that you found out wrote even one of these, never mind the thousands and thousands, and then put them on a website where, by the way, you were selling advertising and making money off of.
No, sir.
There's advertising on there, and at the bottom of each one of those limericks, there is if you want to advertise on this website, contact and write this email address. And if anybody wants to doubt, I have the printouts and I have screenshots of every single page. I'm more than happy to give them to you. So you were advertising on that website. So you were offering people a chance to advertise in exchange for money.
I can
If
tell
a
you as
teacher-
fact, we never made 1 cent on that. We never sold any advertising on that.
But you were open to it. You were amenable to it. You were trying. And my point stands that if a teacher wrote these and put them online, each and every one of you would demand their ouster. You would be furious. You would be at CV right now knocking on Dr. Christopher's door. And just like we have all been going and trying to fix the problems at Cumberland Valley, this is endemic of the problems that we're having in this community. And so I hear that you all condemned it privately and that you don't agree with it, and that's great. But the reality is that all we want is for you to disavow them and apologize and acknowledge that these words are hurtful to people. My friend Julie stood here. She was visibly shaken and hurt. And you still stand by and say there's nothing wrong with them. When the people come here that are affected by these words, come here in front of you and say that they are upset, that it's clearly not harmless. It's not in good fun, and it's not, showing off the hypocrisy. And it's certainly not because we think that there's no platform to run against you. There are problems and concerns that the citizens have. We've listened to Kathleen talk about many of the concerns that she's had that have nothing to do with this. So you are not being genuine and you're not being fair to the people that you have hurt. And all we wanted was for you to disavow them and move on. And instead you've dug in your heels.
When I wrote any of those limericks, and I'll refer to just two that you've referred to right now. One where you talked about an offensive word to the black community.
Mm-hmm.
I did that at the time because two very prominent politicians or people involved in the political world had used it. And were not being chastised for it. And were back, in fact, considered icons among many people on their side of the aisle.
If Al Sharpton chooses to use that word as a black man, that is his choice. And I'm sure that there are a lot of Democrats who are very upset with that.
Okay,
So-
let me finish my sentence, please.
It's not your word
Let
to
me
say.
finish my
It's not my
sentence.
word to say.
Would you let me finish my sentence, please? I listened carefully to what you said. The other person who used that word frequently was a white politician.
Mhm.
It was Senator Robert Byrd.
I'm
who
aware.
used it not only in public places, but on the floor of the Senate.
Right.
And I thought it was fair to chastise his use of that word. And the only way to do that was to say, this is what he said and it's wrong.
There are other ways to call that out.
Just
There are other
as-
ways to criticize it. You don't have to use that word in order to criticize somebody else's use of it. Never mind the fact that you used the word towelhead, which is that's not a quote from somebody.
I agree.
You used that word. It's not like
You
the
replaced
one,
it with sheethead.
yeah,
That's
sheethead,
not
which
even
is,
any better.
right.
That's just as bad.
or implying
And
that
you
it's,
chose the material to which to write the limericks about. You didn't write about the sunshine and rainbows.
right. You had one that is not included here where you compared California of that time to California when it was founded, and you said that everything is the same. They have no electricity. They're shooting each other in the streets. Everybody speaks Spanish, but hey, maybe it's progress now because men hold hands in the street. That's not a quote from somebody. You weren't like calling out hypocrisy on somebody. You were literally. I'll be happy if you want to send all of these to you. I've gone through them since this has come out. It's been a harrowing and upsetting and frustrating experience. I'm more than happy to share them to you since you seem puzzled. Or, the fact that you implied that if Buckwheat became a Muslim, now all of a sudden he's a jihadist, which, that's just ridiculous. Just because somebody is Muslim does not mean that they're a jihadist, doesn't mean that I know you think you were trying to be clever. It's not clever. It's not. Or saying that the only reason why Obama was even considered was because he was black, which you had in there. Or the one where you said that Obama isn't worth a bucket of warm spit. Read that one today too.
Or the death of the country on November.
Yeah, where you said that the U.S. committed suicide by voting for Obama. Saw that one too. So, if people want to think that this is the extent of the terrible stuff that he wrote, it's not. This is 12 out of thousands. And like I said, if a teacher or some other public official wrote this stuff, you all would want their ouster. And we're not even asking for that. We just want an apology. We want you to disavow. And the fact that you stand up there and say, well, I have mixed race grandchildren and I love them dearly, and I'm sure that you do, but you would not accept this from somebody else. But you seem to think since you wrote it, that makes it okay. It's not. We're upset. Your community is upset. And I think that you need to address that.
I hear you, and I hear your passion. When I wrote any of these things, and I hate to reiterate, when I wrote the thing about an NIH study, I was condemning the study, that the amount of money spent for a study that I thought was ridiculous. If it offended the subject of the study, I guess I'll apologize for bringing it to the public attention, but that was not what I was doing.
It's not that you brought it to public attention that upset the people. Saying that this money was wasted because this study seems frivolous,
Yeah,
that's bringing it to somebody's
yeah,
attention.
that's what I did.
No, you called lesbians fat. That's not the same thing. There are ways to do both. And you are trying to play fast and loose, and you're trying to be glib and say that you are just pointing out hypocrisy, or you are just trying to point out that there was waste, which, no, that's not it. Not to mention the fact, like, the profile with pride. You are the chief executive of this township. You are the authority who helped set, along with these other people here, the policies of this township. Which means that you are in charge, in part, of the police department. people who are not white read this and then have to wonder, does he encourage them to profile me because I'm not white? Is he encouraging them to profile me because I'm not Christian or Jewish? Because you made fun of a lot of other religions, and you know, so they have to wonder. You're held to a higher standard by being a public official, by being an elected official. And instead of living up to that standard, you went down and you refused to accept responsibility for it. You said that the intelligent people of Hampden Township won't be upset, which I think, you know, you seem to imply that maybe we're not intelligent and that's why we're upset.
Or all we care about are low taxes.
Right, and that's what you keep going back to, which, by the way, I mean, my fees keep going up, and now you want me to pay a subscription for an ambulance service. So, hey, my taxes haven't gone up, but I'm still paying more out of my pocket. But that aside, or the fact that you have how many hundreds where you make fun of unions and call the workers and the people in unions lazy, when it's unions who come before you and submit bids. Should they all wonder if they even had a chance? Should they wonder if behind closed doors in executive session, you just threw away their bid because you don't think that unions are worth a damn, or that you think that all their workers are lazy? I know a lot of people in unions that are the hardest working people out there. The middle class in America owes a damn lot to unions and what they did for this country. And no, not good enough for you. And we've heard you on tape. We've heard you on tape complain. Well, this would be less if it wasn't for the prevailing wage, which clearly shows that you have a bias and you've written it down, but you don't seem to care. These are the problems that come with writing this kind of stuff, and you, again, refuse to accept it. I also want to raise a point here about the one with the Sikhs, which you said you don't think is at all offensive, even though for them the long hair that they have and the turban that they wear is very important religiously. For them it is a very important religious symbol. And when this was happening, and I remember this in the news because I worked with a lot of Sikh people when I lived in Philadelphia, they were outraged that TSA wanted to search their turbans. The Sikh people are peace-loving. The religion is a wonderful religion. Every single person that I've dealt with in that community has been amazing. And they constantly are profiled because they wear a turban, unfairly so. They do so much for the community. So for you to suggest that they wear a hairnet instead is ridiculous and offensive. And if somebody wrote this about a Jewish person because somebody asked them to take off the yarmulke, or asked a Hasidic person to take off their hat in public, and some person said, well, maybe they should just wear a hairnet instead, I think you'd all be PO'd. You'd all be outraged by that comment. But again, you seem to think it's fine. Maybe because you haven't had enough contact with the community. Maybe you think it's just funny and lighthearted, but it's not. It's not fair and it's not right.
Mr. Silcox, he also made fun of government workers, and you're a government worker. They're lazy.
Yeah.
You know, there's a limerick there about that. You know, it's just.
If you want, I'll send you all 6,000+ ones, and you can spend a day or two combing through them and read them and tell me whether or not you think it's a little troubling or whatever. It's a lot troubling. And you were proud of it. You literally had the link on the Lincoln Institute bio for yourself. So I know that this is, trying to come out and say that this is just a political move. No, this is about accountability. This is about holding you accountable to the people who pay. I know it's not a lot. I know it's only $4,000, but we do pay towards you for the services that you render. And we deserve better.